Everyone teaches the Spanish subjunctive as 50 rules that you need to memorize. It's actually only one, and I'm going to prove that in this video.
Podré para mejorar mi español cuando no tengo mucho tiempo libre para estudiar español.
I'm Hamid, I speak 4 languages fluently, and I got fluent in Spanish 4 times faster than the average person in just 120 hours. So school hands you all these different triggers and these different scenarios and sentences to memorize where the subjunctive will occur. It's way too complicated and confusing. In reality, all those 50 rules can be summarized into one thing, which is doubt or uncertainty. Okay, so one thing I want you to understand here, the way I personally like to think about the subjunctive is that I don't separate the subjunctive and imperative. To me, I think about the subjunctive not as a tense, but rather a trigger, okay? Something that gets triggered, okay? So the way I like to think about that is like a phenomenon. It's like something that occurs naturally. This same trigger applies for subjunctive and imperative. And so instead of just calling them subjunctive and imperative, I just put it together to call it the mood tense, which is what it basically is in English. It's expressing a certain mood. Also because the subjunctive and imperative are conjugated the exact same, except for one example. And so as we know, exceptions don't make rules. And so just because there's one example where the imperative slightly differs from the subjunctive doesn't mean it's enough reason to separate them the way that textbooks in school does. So I just like to think about it as one thing, which is the mood tense. So forget all the charts, forget all the memorization. This is all it is. Is the verb a fact, or is there doubt or uncertainty? The trigger for the mood tense, or the subjunctive imperative, whatever, I'm going to call it the mood tense from now on. The trigger for the mood tense is if there's uncertainty or doubt. Meaning the verb isn't a fact. Or if you're just starting out, I'd highly recommend checking out the Speedy Spanish cheat sheets, which are all my cheat sheets to help you start learning Spanish with these frameworks. And you'll find it in the first link in the description. If the thing is a flat fact, okay, or it's said with the mood of it being a fact, and that second part matters. If it's said with the intention of it being a fact, then it will go into just the regular tense. It won't get triggered. If there is doubt or uncertainty, then it will turn into the mood tense, okay? And so in a sentence, like, quiero que comas más, okay? I want you to eat more, okay? We can see here that there are two verbs here. There's querer and comer that are being used. Now, querer is conjugated to mean I want, querer is to want, quiero is I want, and comas is you eat, but informally, but in the mood tense, okay? And so naturally, normally, it should be comes, right? For ere verbs, you take off the ere, you put es to make it you informal. And so it should have been quiero que comes más. However, if we look at these two verbs, right? In this case, quiero, us wanting something is a complete fact. There's no doubt that we want that, right? And so any desire that you have is a complete fact. You are sure of that desire. There's no doubt that you have that desire. So in this sentence, I want you to eat more. I want you eating more is a fact. My want is a fact. There's no doubt. But you eating more has a complete doubt to it, right? And that's different from saying you eat more, right? If you said comes más, you eat more, there's no doubt in that, right? But when you say I want you to eat more, you eating more has a complete doubt to it. It's not a fact. And so because of that, it won't be comes, but it will be comas. So the subjunctive will get triggered. Or the mood tense, right? And so instead of thinking about it, people have these different frameworks and these different rules for it. Instead of thinking about, it's after que, quiero que, it's after ojalá que, it's after creo que, it's after something, something, something. Instead of memorizing that, just think about it as that one trigger, which is this a fact or not? Is this doubtful or uncertain? Yes or no? To me, when I thought about it in this way, I stopped struggling with the subjunctive. Okay, now I will tell you, this is the hardest tense in Spanish, 100%. This is the one thing that a lot of people will struggle with, especially in the beginning. But I struggled with this so much. I didn't understand anything about it. Once I just thought about it like this, everything got so much easier. It's crazy how much easier this tense got just from this one idea. And you also don't have to memorize a bunch of different scenarios, which is super annoying and just not high leverage. Now you might be thinking, okay, then what is the difference between referring to the future tense and then using the mood tense? Because the future is also uncertain. So how does that sort of work? The difference is in its certainty, okay, in how it sounds, what mood it gives. Because if you say, I'm going to eat more, voy a comer más, that is a straight fact. Even though it's not a fact that you're going to eat more, you're not saying that with any doubt, right? There's no doubt or uncertainty when you're saying, I'm going to eat more, right? But if you said, I want you to eat more, you eating more does have that doubt or uncertainty, right? And so the future tense, if you're just talking about the future tense has a certain like certainty to it. When you use the future, you're not saying it with any mood of having doubt or uncertainty, right? Oh, I'm going to go hang out with my friends, right? That's different than, oh, perhaps I wish I could hang out with my friends, right? Those two have different levels of certainty to them. And so the entire mood tense, including the imperative, can be summarized in if it's a fact or not, meaning if there's certainty or doubt to it. And so this will click by hearing it naturally used by natives. Okay, you're going to find hundreds of examples where it's going to be used like this. And really the reflex of knowing exactly when to use it comes down to watching native Spanish content and just seeing the patterns of when it happens. And if you're just starting off with learning Spanish grammar, this is the last thing that I recommend you go through. Okay, in fact, in my own course, the fundamentals course that I sell, go through it in the last part of grammar. So this will eventually become a reflex for you. And this rule also applies for the imperative. So imperative just refers to orders or demands, right? But the mood tense, the way we're thinking about it, occurs for the same reason, right? Because when you order someone to do something, there's fundamental doubt or uncertainty that they're going to do it, right? If I told you speak with me or you don't speak so fast, right? You not speaking has a fundamental doubt to it, right? If I tell you guys come, there's complete doubt that you're going to come or not, right? I'm just telling you that sort of demand or order. And so there's no real reason to separate subjunctive and imperative. They both get triggered by the same thing, which is doubt or uncertainty. Okay, so forget these 5 rules and all these hundreds of scenarios where you use it. Just forget that. It's 99% of the time, trigger right here will be the reason for the subjunctive and the imperative. Okay, now finally, the only difference between the imperative and subjunctive in its conjugations is literally just one thing, which is that for the you informal affirmative order, so when you tell you informal to do something, it will conjugate the same as the he, she, it, you formal in the present tense. So it would be habla, for example, to tell someone to speak. Okay. And then also the receiver pronouns, meaning the people or things that receive the action of the verb, him, her, them, etc. Also known as the object pronouns, reflexive pronouns, etc. Those will come after the changed verb if it's an order. If it's a positive order, an affirmative order. Okay. So if I was saying eat it, it would be, for example, cómelo, for example, for you informal. But other than that, there's no difference between the subjunctive and the imperative. And so I just put it under one umbrella term of the mood tense. And the only trigger for that is doubt or uncertainty. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to get fluent using these frameworks and you want help from me, you can check the second link in the description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed and stay humble.